The Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, September 16th. This is Africa 54.
As the conflict in Ethiopia rages on, those displaced by fighting receive shelter and aid. A Rwandan conservationist fights to save cranes. And how a plant in Iceland is leading the way in combating global warming.
Ethiopians displaced by fighting between federal troops and the Tigray People's Liberation Front in the Amhara region received aid from the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Ethiopian Red Cross Society. Francis Maguire tells us more.
Ethiopians displaced by recent fighting in the country have received much-needed aid. Video from the International Committee of the Red Cross shows displaced people collecting supplies. The ICRC said the aid distribution started early last month and included items like blankets and lamps. War broke out in Tigray last November between government forces and the Tigray People's Liberation Front. Thousands of people have been killed and more than 2 million forced to flee their homes. Mestawet Dubale is one of the displaced.
The situation is worse than before. We are separated from our families. Initially, we left together with our parents, sisters and brothers, but this time I am separated from my parents and children.
Fighting has spread to Accra and Amhara in recent months, forcing around 450,000 more people to flee the two regions. According to the ICRC, just under 103,000 people have received emergency livelihood and shelter material in Tigray, Amhara and Afar since the start of August.
Francis Maguire of Reuters filed that report. Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo has made a significant senior council move on Thursday, suspending the powers of Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble. President Farmajo is accusing the Prime Minister of not having a working relationship with him and for making rash decisions. The Prime Minister's office has not yet responded. The two men recently clashed over the case of a missing intelligence officer. Somalia's National Intelligence Agency, which employed the intelligence officer, says she had fallen into the hands of Al-Shabaab and was killed by the terrorist group. But Al-Shabaab is denying the allegation. The officer went missing on June 26. Now to West Africa, where the Nigerian Air Force says it may have killed and wounded civilians while pursuing suspected Islamist insurgents in the northeast state of Yobe. Residents say the incident left at least 6 people dead. Nigeria's northeast is the hotbed of two Islamist insurgencies, Boko Haram and Islamic State's West African branch, which split from the former group in 2016. An Air Force spokesperson says a fighter jet responded to intelligence on suspicious movements of suspected insurgents from either the Boko Haram group or the Islamic State branch on Wednesday and fired some probing shots, killing and injuring civilians in the process. Rwandan conservationist Olivier Nsengimana is on a mission to save the iconic gray-crowned crane bird from extinction and is looking after hundreds at a sanctuary in Kigali. Clara Frank has more.
Hundreds of gray-crowned cranes strut through a sanctuary in Rwanda's capital of Kigali. They easily catch the eye with their unique yellow crown of feathers and black and red throat pouch. It's one of Africa's most striking birds, but also among its most endangered. Conservationist Olivier Nsengimana wants to change that.
So 6 years ago, there were more cranes in captivity, in people's house, in hotels, than they were in the wild. And what was happening is like many people really love cranes, but some people, they wanted to have them in their gardens. So there was a huge demand for illegal pet trade. So local communities, driven by lack of awareness, poverty, they were hunting or capturing them and selling them to the dealers.
Nsengimana's passion for cranes goes back to his childhood, living in a village where the birds served as natural alarm clocks and provided entertainment. He has been rescuing cranes since he founded the Rwandan Wildlife Conservation Association. They are still threatened by both an illegal pet trade and the destruction of their natural wetland ecosystem.
In their home range, not only in Rwanda, we've lost about 80% of the whole population in the last 5 decades. Like in 2012, they were uplisted from vulnerable to endangered on the IUCN red list of endangered species. So, and the population status is still highlighted as declining. So cranes are really endangered.
In a little over 6 years, Nsengimana's organization has saved more than 200 cranes from captivity. Nsengimana says engaging local communities and raising awareness about the birds' decline has helped to recover their Rwandan population from 487 to 881 in just 4 years. Clara Frank, VOA News.
Police in Somalia's breakaway Somaliland region say they have arrested a man at Igal Airport in Hargeisa as he tried to smuggle 200 lizards to Egypt. Video from Somaliland police shows a suitcase with plastic containers inside, allegedly used to smuggle the lizards. Police and wildlife authorities in the region say it is not immediately clear why the suspect was illegally exporting reptiles. A communications officer with Somaliland police says it is illegal to export Somaliland's wildlife because they can become extinct. The lizards appeared to be shield-tailed agama, which can retail for $500 each on pet websites. West African leaders are gathering in Accra Thursday to determine how the region's main political and economic bloc can steer Guinea back towards constitutional rule following a coup that ousted President Alpha Conde. The 15-nation economic community of West African states condemned the coup and suspended Guinea from ECOWAS. The leaders, who have called for a speedy return to constitutional rule, will hear a report from a ministerial mission that went to Guinea's capital Conakry on Friday to meet with the leaders of the ruling junta. The regional leaders will then decide how to respond to the coup and how to help Guinea transition to constitutional order, according to Ghanaian Foreign Minister Charlie Yoko Bochwe, who led the ECOWAS mission to Conakry. Germany has joined France in expressing concern about an agreement between Mali's military rulers and a Russian security company that would bring Russian mercenaries into the African country. Diplomatic and security sources have told Reuters that mercenaries hired by the Wagner Group would train the Malian military and provide protection for senior officials. France is worried the arrival of Russian mercenaries would undermine its decade-old counterterrorism operation against al-Qaeda and the Islamic State-linked insurgents in the Sahel region of West Africa, just as it begins to scale down its 5,000-member-strong mission there and reshape it with more European allies. Thursday, September 16th, is the International Identity Day. It is marked as a tribute to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 16.9, which calls for identity for all individuals by 2030. ID4 Africa is an NGO that aims to help develop robust ecosystems in the service of development and humanitarian action. To commemorate the day, ID4 Africa organized a virtual livecast. A panel comprising identification experts addressed why inclusion appears to remain a major challenge for identity systems across Africa. For more, VOA's Peter Clotis spoke to Joseph J. Atik, Executive Chairman of ID4 Africa, via Skype.
Inclusion is a very important objective worldwide. It happens to be a problem in Africa because 500 million people in Africa are not included, are excluded. So it becomes a problem because historically, Africa has had difficulty building civil registers or even keeping national population register records in place with the periods of conflict and civil wars that had followed independence, resulted in the loss of data and the state's inability to know who exists on their territories. And if you don't know the people on your territories, you cannot manage to offer them services or give them the rights that are due. And so inclusion in Africa is a challenge because people are invisible.
The panelists of experts are expected to propose recommendations. How does the organization plan to work with African governments specifically to implement these anticipated proposed solutions?
It's very important to make sure that people understand that our work, which is with the objective of achieving total inclusion and identity for all, is not a simple one-time effort. It's an ongoing campaign which started with us in 2014 and will continue all the way to 2030, which is the objective for the Sustainable Development Goal. This is the year where we have to make sure that everybody is included. And in order to do that, there is no one size fit all. There are many different initiatives. For example, by linking banking to identity, we're simplifying the Know Your Customer regulations. We're allowing the central banks to become registrars to help people, bring them on board into the inclusive system. Instead of saying to them, no, we don't know you, therefore we're not going to let you have a bank account, we tell them we are going to help you get an identity and therefore a bank account. Similarly, in telecom, instead of saying if you don't have an ID, a digital ID, you cannot have a SIM card, what we are doing is we're creating policies in different countries. Many countries are adopting these policies based on the recommendations that we're making, which basically accompany people in those areas. SIM card registration has been very successful in Tanzania. It's been successful in Nigeria. Similarly, banking in Nigeria has been exceedingly successful. There are other programs such as social protection, where we basically bring in a motivator to bring the people in. So what we're saying is that it's not just identity as a record in a database. Identity has to matter, has to empower people. And for that, it has to enable people to do something. And when people know that they're being enabled to do something, they will come. The biggest problem with the invisibles in Africa has been the lack of registration. People are not engaged. They don't interact with their government because they don't understand the value of what this will get to them.
That was VOA's Peter Clotty speaking with Dr. Joseph J. Atik, Executive Chairman of ID for Africa. A Kenyan court on Thursday sentenced a former sports minister to 6 years in prison after finding him guilty of siphoning of funds meant for athletes in the Brazil Olympics 5 years ago. The East African nation enjoyed its most successful Olympics in Rio, winning 6 gold medals, 6 silvers and 1 bronze in track and field, but the performance was blighted by claims of corruption among senior government officials and team bosses. A magistrate's court in Nairobi found Hassan Wario, who was the sports minister at the time, guilty of abuse of office in connection with the loss of funds. The court gave Wario the alternative of paying nearly a $33,000 fine to avoid going to jail. Let us know what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, we'll reveal what country is the home of the world's largest direct air capture and storage plant of carbon dioxide. Stay with us.
health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lina Khmoudou, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Iceland is now the home of the world's largest direct air capture and storage plant of carbon dioxide. The plant aims to remove 4,000 tons of carbon dioxide, one of the main contributors to global warming from the air each year. VOA's Maria Diallo has more.
The world's largest plant capturing carbon dioxide directly from the air is now operating in Iceland. The plant was built by Climeworks, a Swiss firm, using technology from another Icelandic company.
With a capacity of 4,000 tons of CO2 that are captured from the air every year. So that's the nominal capacity. And we are then handing over this CO2 to our partners from Carbfix, who inject it underground. And the CO2 there is mineralized with the basalt rock. So it's turned into stone, literally.
Filters in huge fans in the plant called Orca have been set up to do the job. Chemical engineer Natalie Casas is Climeworks' head of research and design.
We have this box where we have a filter material inside. The filter material has a high affinity to CO2. This means when we blow air through the collector, the CO2 sticks to the filter material, and we keep on blowing air through. When the filter material is saturated, we stop, we close the box, and we start heating. We heat with low-grade heat up to approximately 100 degrees. And while doing so, the CO2 is released from the filter material and can be pumped out of the collector.
The heating process to create the high-grade carbon dioxide that is then pumped deep into basalt caverns requires energy. Casas says this comes from a nearby geothermal power plant, a renewable energy source.
So we don't want to emit CO2 while capturing CO2. We also did a quite thorough LCA, so life cycle analysis, in order to understand how much CO2 are we emitting while capturing CO2. And the plant we have in Iceland, so its efficiency is higher than 90%.
Climeworks says building direct capture plants are not enough to solve the whole global warming problem. Countries will need to remove 1 billion tons of CO2 from the atmosphere by 2025 to meet Paris Climate Agreement target goals and avert catastrophic warming, according to a recent study. The International Energy Agency says there are currently 15 direct air capture plants operating worldwide, removing more than 9,000 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere per year. The Energy Agency says global CO2 emissions last year totaled just over 31 billion tons. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
3 British Afghan women are on a hunger strike near the British Parliament to protest the treatment of women in Afghanistan by the Taliban. Yalda Bakhtash reports.
These 3 women are on a hunger strike. They are protesting the human rights abuses in Afghanistan, particularly the treatment of women by the Taliban.
The aim of our hunger strike is to raise the voices of those voiceless women of our country to the world and the British government.
For the past month, Afghans across the world have been protesting the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. The 3 hunger strikers say that because the protests have not yielded any results, they took the next step of refusing to eat anything. They are still waiting for the British government to take notice of their demands.
Unfortunately, no one came to see us yet. But unfortunately, there was a alarm went off in Parliament, and Member of Parliament has to come out. There was a lot of Member of Parliament outside. One MP came and he talked to us. He took our statement, but we haven't heard anything yet.
The women want the international community to put pressure on the Taliban to abide by the pledges they made to respect human rights when they seize power in Kabul.
Anyone in power should serve people, stop massacring, stop suppressing women, and stop silencing our journalists.
Human Rights Watch has accused the Taliban of extrajudicial killings in recent months, accusations the Taliban deny. But since coming to power, the Taliban have imposed strict restrictions on women and journalists in Afghanistan. Yalda Bakhtash, VOA News, Washington.
As Americans continue to grapple with the economic downturn from the COVID-19 pandemic, the state and city governments are providing funding to train job seekers in high-demand occupations. Some of that money comes from the nearly $2 trillion American Rescue Plan Act to train people in fields such as computers, data technology, construction, healthcare, and hospitality. VOA's Penelope Pulu explains.
Alaji Dampfa worked as a dishwasher and grill cook at various places before getting a job as a cook at the Sheraton, a union hotel in downtown Los Angeles. A year later, COVID hit.
So we were laid off for about 2 months. And then I got a call back to work on the senior meal program that we're doing right now with the County of Los Angeles, where we provide almost 10,000 meals every week to senior citizens, people who are impacted by the pandemic, homeless, survivors of sexual harassment and trafficking.
Dampfa says this job opportunity would not have been possible without his apprenticeship at the Hospitality Training Academy, the training arm of Unite Here Local 11, the Food Service and Hospitality Workers Union.
As of now, we have received over $50 million in government funding to provide those services, and we have brought 1,100 workers back to work, and we have fed over 10,000 individuals since April of 2020.
Aideen Foreman says that money comes from President Biden's American Rescue Plan Act, from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES Act, and from California's state government. The money covers training tuition, transportation, and childcare. Foreman says the Academy's senior food program keeps cooks and delivery people employed, hotel kitchens up and running, and provides healthy meals to seniors and other groups. Once the program is phased out, Foreman says the Academy will help transition trainees to other jobs and up the career ladder in the hospitality industry. The Information and Engineering Technologies Division of Northern Virginia Community College has also received federal and state relief money to train displaced people and others in technical jobs that are in demand.
Through all of the different infusions of funds that we've got federally, we've been able to give out almost $22 million to our students through that support.
Chad Knights is the college's Vice President of Information and Engineering Technologies. He says the college has received $10 million for initiatives to help students train in engineering technology, software development, and data analytics. He says digital technology has become even more important with the increase in teleworking since the pandemic hit.
We're having trouble keeping the students in the program because really the minute they make it through what is our certificate program, they're snatched up for internships in local positions.
The community college has built a partnership with Micron Corporation, among others, focusing on automation technology.
We were able to build out this lab and really replicate some of the on-site training that individuals would need as they progress through our program and then into internships at Micron.
Chad Knight says federal and state funds are paramount in the development of these programs at the Northern Virginia Community College. He says they are key in putting people back to work in the state of Virginia. Penelope Pulu, VOA News, Washington.
In the U.S. state of California, voters have rejected a move to unseat their governor in a recall election, a rarely used provision of direct democracy in some 20 U.S. states. VOA's Mike O'Sullivan reports that Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, faced down 46 challengers in an election where Donald Trump became an unseen player.
Democrats urged a no vote on the recall, and Governor Gavin Newsom says the result was an affirmation.
We said yes to science. We said yes to vaccines. We said yes to ending this pandemic.
His leading Republican challenger, conservative radio host Larry Elder, said COVID precautions such as masks and vaccines should be voluntary. This voter disagreed.
COVID is quite real, and we're not done with it yet. And we need to keep with the fight.
Some issues hurt Newsom, including California's high crime rate and rising homelessness.
I've been living in Southern California for 40 years, and this is home for me. And I just think that we need new leadership.
As early voting was underway, President Joe Biden campaigned in California against the recall and against Elder.
He's the clone of Donald Trump. Can you imagine him being governor of this state?
One analyst says for Democrats, dislike of Trump became a powerful motivator.
I think what the California result proves is that Donald Trump is still toxic to Democrats, and using Trump as a campaign issue will produce lots of Democratic votes.
But as Republicans rallied around Elder, Democrats became worried, says another analyst.
They brought big-name national Democrats out to rally the troops, and I think that betrayed that they considered this a serious threat.
Newsom will face the voters again next year in a regular election, and Elder, admitting defeat in the recall vote, said it's not over.
We recognize that we lost the battle, but we are certainly going to win the war.
It will be an uphill fight. Nearly half of California voters are registered as Democrats, fewer than 1/4 as Republican. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
And that wraps up our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.